Today I'll be reading an extract of my poem called Sudan. I hope you like it, and as Ali said, I hope you go and purchase a copy of the book because it not only illustrates beautiful tales of Sudan, proceedings go to charity, so it's a win-win. Sudan, I love her like a mother loves his child, unconditionally, blindly, absolute. The odor she produces is so sweet, so unique, but it hurts me to see her suffering, to witness what she goes through, screaming in pain, injected with poverty, coughing in pollution, self-harming, civil war, and split into two. Yet she'll come through stronger. I love her because she's developing just as I am, trying to become a better land, and I a better man. Each grain of sand holds its own weight, competing against each passing day. The complexity of faces, all with a different story to tell. The art of conversation still burning well, thus she is stripped. It's children seeking higher learning with signs of scuffed feet, walking bare feet throughout the seasons, throughout the heat. But education is for the smart, and smart we must be. Sacrifice everything you can to set your mind free. A vision engraved deep within, set by family name. Therefore, failure is not an option. Failure does not exist. Sudan's a land that needs trade, not aid. Sudan's a land that needs trade, not aid. If you stand back, you realize that handouts are great. Until the hand moves away, who will then feed you? Sudan can stand on its own two. She boasts the beautiful now, earth that's fertile with climates of all types. Hard-working genes, people looking for a means, the sweetest of coffee beans. A land full of history, honor, and pride. Emerge from this myth and drown in research. Get lost in the Sahara Desert reading Ibrahim Salman and you'll find that she's sentimental in value. Motherland is her name. Poor but rich, not free from pain. Divided by thoughts, separated by courts, and instead of joining forces to force out famine, she loiters in loneliness, slowly torn in two. A divided nation, a broken home, a tug of war that's ended numb, a new map drawing, a new face, but still the same problems. A drop of oil below the soil suffocates the children's growth, for what is it worth if you lose the value of this earth? Nothing. Thank you.
I was born in South Sudan, Juba, but I also lived in Khartoum briefly before traveling to Europe and living here since the mid-1990s. And I've lived in the Netherlands since 1995. And in 2011, I came to the UK for my master's, but I'm still here. So I've been writing since about the early 1990s from secondary school. And it's mainly contributing stories to magazines or competitions. And when this competition came, I decided to submit my short story. So I'm going to read an excerpt from the short story. A short while later, just as I was walking towards another group of stalls displaying metal utensils and colorful plasticware, two other teenagers came hurrying towards me. Their looks, except for their clothing, which was a shirt and a pair of trousers in both cases, was no different from the others I had encountered a short while ago. "Yeah, say it. Interested in gold?" one of them asked. "No," I replied. Then the other produced a shiny golden bracelet from a side pocket. "You have no idea what kind of opportunity you are turning down," he said. "Look, this is half gold. We can sell you pure gold for the lowest price." Just what were these guys up to? I asked myself. I thought of ignoring them, but then a sense of curiosity within me overruled that decision. Perhaps these were the swindlers and thieves about whom I heard before. If that was how they did their dirty work, then let me find out. "And what's your price for the pure gold bracelet?" I asked, pretending to show some interest. A smile crossed the youngster's brown face, and he signaled me to follow him towards the shop, some 50 meters away. As we approached the shop, I saw 3 other boys, whom I assumed to be in their mid to late teens, standing next to a small tree that would not have survived the heat had someone not been caring for it with tap water from a greenhouse. The trio came forward as they saw us walking in their direction. "Show him," said the youngster whom I had followed, and I began to wonder whether that was a pre-arranged meeting. One of the three produced another shiny golden bracelet from his pocket. He took the other bracelet from the teenager I had met earlier and placed them side by side. "You see the difference?" he said. "What I have is 99.9% gold." The bracelets looked the same. Instead of inquiring for a proof, I asked, "What's your price? How much can you offer?" I assumed it was a question to test my knowledge of the pricing. "I can't say. You are the seller. Name your price," I replied. "For you alone," he said, revealing a double row of yellow teeth, "I'm offering just 20,000 pounds. 20,000 pounds. That's about 70 dinars. It's more than 20 plates of the common food in any of those restaurants." I indicated in the direction of some food joints by the roadside. "How much can you pay?" I said, 7. "That's an insult." He turned, pretended to walk away, stopped, and returned to face me again. He then added, "Nobody can sell you such gold for less than half the price. This is quality. It's from the Nubian desert. It has the blessings of the ancient kings." He paused and quickly glanced around and said, "I'm giving you one more chance, just one more chance." 12, I said. "After Allah," he said, and repeated his moves. He then said, 17, 13, I said, and suddenly I realized I was in the middle of all 5 boys, 2 facing me and the other 3 seemed to be arguing behind me. I felt unsafe and decided to find a way out of this. 15, said the young man. "I actually did not come for gold," I said suddenly. "Besides, I still find it expensive." I turned and started walking away. At that moment, I realized that the other 3 boys were out of sight. Thank you. You'll find the rest in the book.
Thank you very much.
Hi, can everyone hear me? This is my story. It's called Greeting Kharta Fatma. I live outside Sudan. I have for most of my life. This brings with it one of the things I look forward to most on my calendar, the yearly trip back to visit my family. I think about all the smiles and all the laughs that will take place around the dining table, the classic home-cooked meals on which I was raised, which invariably contain a fistful of diced onions that have no business being there. I'm not a fan of onions, but I endure. The obligatory desserts follow, which are usually too sweet, yet we don't hesitate to gorge ourselves on the flans and the cakes and the fruit salads. We're familiar with diabetes. Then come the rounds, the visits to relatives in far-off corners of the city. Negotiating the streets of Khartoum is a masterclass in heart-rending vehicular encounters and near misses, requiring precision and patience of the highest order. All this set to a tune of a cacophony of car horns. At these moments, I'm thankful that I can't drive. Even if I could, I don't know what I would do without a sat-nav to guide me, given the Sudanese penchant for omitting road names from directions. Unfortunately, they might refer to a tarmac road the way I might refer to Oxford Street. Seeing my family fills me with affection I can scarcely describe. My grandmother's eyes, my younger cousin's chuckles, and a home littered with family photos. We usually travel in December because the weather is pleasant and the wedding season is in full swing. All the family gathers on these happy occasions and creates happy memories. It's at these weddings that I happen upon the downside of living abroad. The trouble with being away from my home country is that I did not come to know my family as well as I might have wished. It often makes me quite sad to think about it, not helped by the interrogatory encounters with which I'm regularly faced when meeting some of them at such gatherings. The series of exchanges is all too familiar, beginning with a jab that is a snide comment upon my Arabic, followed by a body blow snatching the breath from my lungs when they ask that dreaded question, "Do you remember me?" My answer, silence. My heart beats faster and beads of sweat begin to form. I find myself divided, equal parts embarrassed and irritated. These are my elders and my blood, but what do they know about me other than who my parents are? I would guess little more than I do of them. In fact, in that one moment with that question, my happiness abut sadness. It wasn't my fault that I didn't grow up with them. I've met them as many times as they have me, yet they can tell me no more than my name. The tension I feel stifles any attempt at conversation I might otherwise conjure. On one such round, I visited my great-aunt, Khalta Fatma, in Bahri with my mother. She had gone for a gathering with her cousins, and I went along to greet my relatives. Khalta Fatma's bungalow sat on the side of a long stretch of road, solitary with no structures on either side of it. The sloped cement driveway covered in sand extended to the edge of the road, inviting would-be visitors to park up and enter. A plain exterior, nothing set it apart from other buildings in sight. Upon entry, however, something changed. There sat faintly familiar furniture which had remained a permanent fixture throughout the years, amongst which my relatives prayed and upon which they sat and confabulated over what sounded like a never-ending series of inside jokes linked to their ever-intertwined childhoods. My mother was instantly swept up in the atmosphere and taken back to what felt like a golden age in her mind. I couldn't help but feel enthralled by the warmth and beam as I reached out my hand to greet my relatives. But suddenly, that infamous panic spread throughout my body, and as my mother's cousins asked me that question, and once again, silence. Punctuated with twisted mouths, silence. Rolling eyes, silence. Loosening grips, silence. Averted gazes, silence. Broken by a scornful comment about how I didn't know them. They then didn't tell me who they were. They seemed ashamed. I felt embarrassed again. And then I saw my aunt, Khalta Fatma. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. I immediately rushed over and embraced her. She kissed me lots and I hugged her back, and then she looked at me and kissed me some more. She held my hand tightly and sat me down next to her. Then she tried to communicate, but I didn't understand. She cried. Her tears reminded me of the first time I visited her after her stroke, when she first lost the ability to speak. It was the first time I had seen her in almost a decade, when I was a small child, so I had no real memories of her. She cried that day too, and I remember feeling a dull ache form in my throat. I didn't want to cry in front of her. I didn't want her to think that it was her fault, that the sight of her was upsetting. I saw the struggle of a woman with a mind filled with wonderful memories, brimming with emotions and no adequate way to express either. On that day of the gathering, I sat next to her and took her hand and held it. We smiled at each other. I apologized for not coming earlier and said I was busy with all these weddings. The Baba side of the family had nothing to do but wed. She laughed. I asked Mama to take a photo of the two of us. We posed and smiled. You'll find the rest of the story in the book.